Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Offsite and In-Store, Retail Media's next major media channels. My name is Andrew Lipsman. I'm a principal analyst at Insider Intelligence, and I'm joined by a very special guest today, Evan Havorka, Vice President of Product and Innovation at Albertsons Media Collective. We'd also like to thank Albertsons Media Collective for making this session possible. Now, before we begin, let us know where you're tuning in from. You can do that by using the chat window to the right of the video feed. And most importantly, ask us questions. All right, so with that, let's get started. Evan, so I want to set up this conversation first by framing what we're going to talk about today, which is offsite and in-store. This is really the evolution of retail media. I like to say that we've gone from the retail media 1.0 era, which is really search ads, on-site search, driving in-store ads, driving on-site ads, driving on-site conversions. But now we're starting to evolve up the funnel and into the store. And this is the retail media 2.0 era. So when I say up the funnel, it means display and video ads, it means streaming TV ads, it means in-store ads. And when we talk about sort of moving in terms of attribution into other environments, it's in-store. So we're starting to account for those in-store sales, which are about 90% of sales in grocery. And then eventually we'll get into the 3.0 era, which starts to be the last best marketing touch point, which is product samples. And we start to think even further in terms of attribution with accounting for lifetime value. So it's not just that purchase and that conversion as it happens, but over time. And obviously in grocery, there's a purchase frequency cadence that occurs as well. So anyway, Albertsons is really sitting at the center of a lot of this as we evolve into the 2.0 era for retail media. You're working with the Trade Desk. You've got partnerships with Pinterest, Omnicom Media Group. What can you tell us about how you're working with some of these partners to evolve up the funnel?
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. I love that era mentality, or I've used the term chapters. There's no definitive cutover from chapter 1 or era 1 to era 2, but I think your general description is spot on. It's just a natural evolution of where's the lowest hanging fruit, what's going to drive the most value, and maybe easiest to deploy. So on-site search, on-site display certainly fall into that bucket. But as soon as we move off platform, right, into the world of social, open web, CTV, generally retailers need help, right? We are not CTV experts as an industry yet. Linear TV falls into that bucket, but those are important channels for the CPG. So we leverage partnerships to help us get there. Certainly the social platforms lean in quite heavily, as that's where our audiences overlap. And Trade Desk, DV360 from Google, lots of other tech players in that space help us bring our strong audience and conversion capabilities to that traditionally non-retail media-centric space. And yeah, it's been a fun journey. I mean, these vendors, these agencies have really leaned in. They see the value of the retail media assets, the first-party data, the SKU level conversion, even the on-site inventory as great enablers to tell a full story, full funnel marketing story. So we've had a lot of positive responses from those tech enablers that you mentioned. And we've been building with the ones that align to our core values, like Trade Desk, Pinterest, Google, and others.
Yeah, and it all starts with this great foundation of first-party data, right? The grocery buying behaviors that are happening in-store and online with Albertsons, and then plugging that into these upper funnel environments. You also have a new partnership you just went live with Cargo. This one's pretty interesting. Why don't you tell us about what you're doing there with these shoppable media units?
Yeah, it's leading on that era evolution story again. We're really here to take retail media to the end of its value chain, which then probably is a switch over to something new, right? That'd be the 3.0, where the media drops and we look at just end-to-end CPG enablement. And so one thing that's a big part of that mix that hasn't been cracked yet by most retail media networks is the traditional print circular. And huge piece of the traditional CPG retail partnership has been those printed flyers, printed circulars showing up in the newspaper, showing up in somewhat clunky solutions online, but they're the reason they're so important is they just drive tons of engagement. We see a lot of traffic, a lot of customer engagement, and a lot of sales from those weekly ad and print circular components. And the CPGs love them too. I mean, this is their chance to shine, their chance to push a product at a price, generally with localized strategies in place. Fantastic. But how do you then get that to eyeballs that may not be on a retailer's website, and do it in a way that's a little more modern, right? Definitely the print circular, for sustainability reasons, cost reasons, has seen some decline. The traditional enablement of a website version of that has been clunky, but valuable and living within the constraints of that retailer's website. Cargo helps us take that promise of the localized price and promotion by a CPG into the off-platform world. So social is the first place, but we'll go open web as well. And with Cargo, they've got these fantastic rich media components that help that somewhat clunky looking print circular turn into a really modern looking ad unit. I mean, it's got scrollability, it's got some movement in there, not quite video, but it's got some dynamic components that really make it pop and help us tell a better story for that CPG. And then they've got some shoppability components. It's not a full checkout scenario, but it's a lot more intuitive, a lot more drill downable for the consumer while they're on that social media platform or wherever they're spending their time off our website. Cargo can help us find those folks, enable the audience with the rich media, and then putting a consistent message out there across social platforms. So it's been a fun partnership. We're just getting started. We've got it's tested live in market now, and they're looking fantastic. I mean, the visual components are absolutely stunning, and now we're going to track performance and see where we scale.
I love this because the weekly circular is such a big driver of consumer behavior, has been for a long time. It's also stayed analog, I think, longer than a lot of things have, but it's really shifting to digital at this point. And we haven't talked about the weekly circular or trade and promotions in the context of retail media. But let's be honest, this is one of the biggest buckets of marketing spend that's out there. So clearly there's a lot of value this is driving for brands.
Yeah, exactly. If we think of the premise of retail media in the 1.0 part of the 2.0 evolution, it really is the lower funnel of the conversation, the sales drivers, right? We've got that SKU, it's in stock at a price point, the coupons are available, we've got delivery components. So we can really shine in that bottom of the funnel sales driver. There's obviously been a lot of evolution to go up that funnel, which we'll get into later in the call. But for that bottom of the funnel, the conversion piece to shine, what are the consumers looking for? It's what's on sale, what has a coupon, what's in stock, and that weekly flyer. That print circular has been carrying that load for decades. So no better place to harvest content from that's a proven winner on all sides of the fence, the CPG, the retailer, the consumer, the shopper. Why not let that be the driver of the creative and the content for the lower funnel strategies? It's a little interesting why that hasn't evolved faster. I think there's a lot of technical components that have limited it. But now that we've unlocked that with Cargo, we can let that really convincing item at a price story come to life anywhere.
Yeah, it's huge for being able to close the loop to transactions. Now, as we think about moving up the funnel now, offsite advertising in retail media is going to grow 37% this year, according to our forecast, and continue to grow at about 30% a year for the next several years. All the way to about 20 billion by 2027. So there's huge momentum behind this opportunity. We've also seen it start to evolve into streaming TV, as we alluded to before. There's some recent partnerships we've seen across the landscape. Streaming TV partnerships like Kroger and Disney was a recent announcement, Best Buy and Roku. A lot of these are starting to happen. How are you? How is Albertsons Media Collective starting to think about this opportunity?
Yeah, we want to be playing our appropriate role in any marketing strategy that a CPG wants to bring to market. There's areas where we're obvious winners, the on-site, the lower funnel, the conversion drivers. But the story's gotten much richer for off-platform opportunities too. And you touched on it, but let's hammer it home. The reason for that, right? Traditionally, why would a retailer have value propositions on a trade desk or a social media platform where the CPG can go direct with or without their agency? The value prop we bring there is this defensible first-party data, right? Cookies been declining for many years. It's almost dead. But there's also measurement expectations that are rising from the CPGs. They're not happy with click-through conversions or even digital conversions. Most of the CPGs are selling a vast majority of their products in the brick and mortar still, and that'll be true for many years to come. And so they need that offline conversion, which can only come from a high fidelity CRM system that can link the offline sale, physically SKUs leaving a point of sale system, to a loyalty program that has digital hooks, authenticated first party defensible digital hooks. That then becomes the value prop we bring off platform through anonymized digital ID partners. We can find that same audience with authority on any of the big players that CPGs would want to play with. We mentioned them already, DSPs. And we can tell the same, high accuracy, high level of targeting story there with the offline conversion follow-up. So the measurement doesn't take a back step. The audience doesn't take a back step. So we're bringing really the things people loved about 1.0 retail media to the larger ecosystem. And with that, though, does require some of the partnership pieces. And so in the case of streaming, whether we call that linear TV, CTV, just digital video, those areas get complicated, right? There's creative aspects that are challenging. That weekly print circular doesn't turn into a CTV ad easily the way it does into a display ad. And so we partner with folks like VideoAmp, OMG. We're talking to other big players in that space to help tell our story. And it can take shape as a deal ID with some audience tied to a self-serve product that a CPG might want to run, or it can be much deeper, like in the case of OMG, where we're looking at TV planning capabilities in the linear space and the CTV space based on some really advanced audience targeting. So super excited place to evolve. I think we're just seeing the beginnings of that. You're seeing the first chapter of that story being told as an audience enabler, some self-service capabilities. But there's a much richer story to be told when we look at full funnel marketing, like omni-channel strategy, omni-channel planning, year-long planning, where that CPG can bring national dollars and brand dollars together and tell one cohesive story across multiple channels. As a retail media network, we get to tell part of that story really, really well, but we can tell the whole story much better with partnerships with folks that play in the linear space, the CTV space, with more authority. So it really is all enabling the CPG to do better, to feel better about their investment. And we think CTV, linear TV is the last chapter of our product stack to get there.
Yeah, one of the most effective mediums ever, but the hardest to measure. And so it's kind of cool that we're entering this point now where we're going to have this, first off, narrow targeting, right? It doesn't just have to be mass reach. And also that closed loop measurement. I mean, that to me, I get asked all the time, is retail media, is it about, the cookieless world and all these things? There's a lot of drivers that are sort of facilitating this trend, but to me, it's closed loop measurement. That is the single most important variable that drives it, because you can see what you're putting in, you can reach the right audiences, and then you can see the return.
Yeah, and maybe a double click into that, Andrew. There's a lot of vendors out there. A lot of players can talk closed loop measurement, audience targeting. Those words are fairly transferable. But when you think of a CPG's need to do that across multiple channels, multiple investment opportunities, having one consistent audience, one consistent measurement strategy show up in all the channels is a godsend, right? It's a real game changer, because when a retailer does it, you've got the longevity of the relationship with the consumer. So you've got years and years of shopping history that can tell much richer insights like lifetime value. We can start playing with multi-touch attribution models, either on our side or enabling the CPG to do it on their own. And versus a point in time, there's lots of people in the middle who can harvest bits and pieces of that audience, bits and pieces of a closed loop. Maybe it's an online conversion or using click as an assumption driver for sales. But without the consistency of SKU level sales tied to that CRM system, you're jumping solutions with each channel. And so I'm not saying this is the absolute perfect solution yet with all of the linear CTV piece, but the promise would be one audience, one measurement methodology for a full stack marketing campaign. And that's going to be tough to beat.
And accounting for all of those sales happening in store, right? Retail media, again, the 1.0 era was about these online ads driving an online sale. Well, we got 90% happening in stores. you have a very high level of data fidelity when it comes to your loyalty card program. So you're seeing almost all of those transactions. That opens up what we can measure, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think the tips you would want to receive in deciding where to spend your media dollars would be, is that CRM system and that point of sale system capturing what percent of transactions and what percent of digital activity, right? That's the health and wellness metric of a retail media network. In the case of grocers, the identified transactions at point of sale are extremely high, 90% plus. And that's because the loyalty program adoption is it's such a high penetration, given the discounts and the coupons that get applied. We see mass adoption across all of our users. So it's a 90% plus identification at point of sale. And then online, the vast majority of that is authenticated as well. So you're getting the digital ID enrichment there, which of course helps the online on-site story, but that is the seed then that powers the off platform as well. So without that frequent first party enrichment of IDs and confirmation of sale, you're left trying to make up the middle with science or extrapolations or smoothing. And we don't have to do that with healthy retail media networks.
That's huge. Before we jump ahead to in-store retail media, I do want to talk about incrementality measurement. I will say, in talking to a lot of CPG brands, this is the number one issue that comes up every time I talk to them, that ROAS isn't enough. They want to know incremental ROAS, return on ad spend, and understandably so, right? I don't think a lot of CPG brands necessarily believe that if they put a dollar in, that they're getting $4 of return out. They know that some of those sales would have happened otherwise. Tell me how you're approaching incrementality, because I think that Albertsons Media Collective has really been embracing this shift and at the head of the curve and talking about incrementality.
Yeah, we really want to be transparent on any of our measurement stories, because without that transparency, the trust factor is in question, right? And it's an acknowledgement too that there's no perfect system out there. But if we expose our methodologies and expose our math and science, the CPGs can at least know where we're strong and where they might need to compensate. And that's true of any retail media network or any marketing platform, right? Lost value of media investment has been a problem since marketing was invented. What these more high identified systems enable is CPGs can go deeper into challenging those lost revenue dollars. They can hold those channels more accountable and then do something about it. So I think any network that's looking to build trust with their CPG should be opening up those doors and inviting them into the conversation of how their methodology works. We've been probably the most progressive in sharing that. Part of that is we had a late mover advantage, bringing it in-house only a year and a half ago. So we thought that would be a great way to establish our brand as a place of trust and transparency. Again, it's not always perfect, but here's the methodology. It's as scientifically defensible as any out there. We're not doing synthetic controls in post. Everything's up front. It's the standard A/B split with some Bayesian models in the middle. And so there's no room for fuzzy math, right? We're only taking identified ad serves, tying them to identified point of sale transactions. No extrapolation for cash, no extrapolation for fuzzy math logic. And when you show that math to the CPG, their eyes light up. They typically get really excited. Again, ROAS isn't guaranteed to be the best ever, but it's the most trustworthy and most transparent. And so that's the platform we want to move forward with, because then it just enables so many other healthy conversations in how to innovate elsewhere once we can trust the measurement. I think I answered your question there.
You did, and I'll just editorialize a bit and say that I think there is a big need for trust and transparency in the market. And it's resonating with brands when the conversation begins with incrementality and from the retail media networks who are embracing that conversation. It is, I see it helping to advance the industry as a whole. Let's shift.
Oh, sorry, one last thing to throw on there. We've got big CPGs that have been mature and very mature in the marketing space for decades as well. Some of their categories, they may have a 50, 60, 70% brand penetration. And so that concept of just spray and pray, or let's just put some media out in market and hope for the best. They're well beyond that, right? If you've got a 50% plus penetration on a particular category, closed loop is so close to just natural sales anyway that without the incrementality piece, it's really tough to defend additional investment into the channel. Sorry, go ahead.
Absolutely. All right, let's shift gears here to talking about in-store retail media. Now, this is a much more nascent opportunity, but I think it's one that's brimming with a ton of potential. We did our first ever forecast of it. We expect that it's going to grow by about 40% year over year for the next several years. And that's really even before we expect it to hit an inflection point where it can become really big. There's so many different potential surfaces in the store that can be leveraged: front of store kiosks, checkout aisle, between aisle, end caps, sample kiosks, smart carts, cooler doors. Right there's a lot of places that these sorts of digital experiences could go. Because of that, I've called in-store retail media the next major media channel. I think it offers scale, contextual relevance, brand safety, the ability to reach large and hard to reach audiences. So this is what brand advertisers want. How are you thinking about the in-store retail media opportunity for Albertsons?
Yeah, it's really the last biggest piece of the puzzle to land for most networks. It's sensitive, right? If you've got 2,500 stores across the U.S. with different floor prints, different formats, it's challenging to bring a consistent story, consistent media solution to that network. The site and app generally look and feel the same, regardless of any geolocation, and it's easy then to scale ads and services there. The store side has been a challenge for many reasons, right? There's a payroll component, a physical hardware purchase and delivery component, and then a centralized way to distribute ads. I think there is some value in localized digital out of home. You've seen that take shape. We have programs like that in our stores today, and we have lots of testing going on that's regional specific. But it needs to evolve into one national strategy, one national program where you can bring a centralized ad server that connects to the rest of the retail media investment. So that's what we're working on now. We've got some partnerships in process to bring that type of strategy to market. There's tons of sensitivity around consumer experience, right, within that store. I think we've seen bad examples in other areas where it looks like a NASCAR show. We can't have it distract from the reason they're in that store, right? This is our point of differentiation, is physically moving products off shelves. And so anything that disrupts that is going to be a challenge. So we don't want that piece. But there are easy ways to bring safe, inspirational solutions that are media-based, monetizable to that store footprint. And they take shape like, instead of the display banner, it could be a guacamole recipe in a discrete video format next to the avocados, right? That'd be a basic one. Or seasonal, geographical relevant call outs around price and promo, kind of, again, that weekly circular taking shape. But we're really looking at it as a way to solve shoppers' problems. So recipes, new product launches, price and promo is a great one. And do it in a really tasteful way that enhances the flow of their shopping experience. And ideally, if not increasing their basket size, making those products better match their lifestyles and their dietary preferences. So there's a lot of goodness that can come from that type of strategy, especially when you've got such our motto is locally great, nationally strong. We've got brilliant store owners and divisional leaders who know exactly what demographics shop their stores. And we can harvest that and bring very specific, very hardworking media solutions to just that one store in Tucson, Arizona that maybe has a unique demographic around it. So that granularity and surgical performance is so powerful. We just need a safe and scalable way to manage the hardware and the rollout of the ads.
Yeah. Well, let's come back to the local point in just a moment. But first, I want to talk about this tension between advertising experiences and customer experience. First of all, I give Albertsons and other retailers a lot of credit, because when this comes up, CX is always first. And that's great. That is where the starting point should be. You could easily see how we go down the wrong path, where it becomes like the modern version of the web page, where you just get littered with all these ads and it detracts from the experience. I don't think anybody wants that, but you can do it in a way that customers want and is additive, as you're mentioning. Let's show that last slide here. This is research from the Path to Purchase Institute, highlighting that consumers are actually overall pretty receptive to in-store ads. And what we're looking at here, well, first off, of consumers who say that, what makes these types of ads grab their attention, only 8% say they don't pay attention to in-store ads. That's actually very low for people who are sort of ad averse. In most research I've seen, it's a lot higher. And then the black bars here are showing basically when it helps people out, saves them time or money. So I think tells them about a promotion or sale or reminds them about a product they need to buy. So it's driving utility. But also they just like advertising to be creative or eye-catching, and maybe introduce them to new brands or products. So I think it can fulfill a lot of needs for consumers in store.
Yeah, I agree with all those comments. But the industry needs to evolve a little bit on the technology and the solutioning side. And so there isn't this great ready to go, Trade Desk or DV360 deployment lever that you pull and poof, we've got an in-store media network. That has to be built typically from the ground up. I think retailers who are serious about it would bring that service in-house. That's what we're doing. So you can own and control that customer experience and dial it up or dial it back, in preservation of what the store is there for, which is moving products and allowing CPGs to see their products move. So we want to move quick but cautiously, and I think you hit on it. It's inspirational. It should be additive and inspirational types of media, which is fun. I think that's the story CPGs want to tell too. Ultimately, if we boil down the goals of the shopper, the retailer, and the CPG, 90% of them are the same. We want people buying products that they want, that fulfill their life journey in a sustainable way, right? We're not looking for a quick new product sale that doesn't meet that consumer expectation and then never buy it again. That's a failure on all fronts. It's a spike in maybe media revenue or a spike in sale for the CPG, but ultimately we're looking for shopper happiness. Like, come back, buy more of that product, get the affinity products or the ones that are complementary, and live the life that you need to live, on top of the things we can enable, like the proper price points, the proper delivery services, the proper new product launch media that we can help that shopper understand. So when we look at it that way and try to remove the friction points, life becomes a lot easier, because it really is the same goal across all three. And we've just added a little bit of complexity because of technology, and the evolution of retail media isn't complete yet. So there's a few little friction points that need to be removed.
Last question before we wrap up. So we've talked about how it can be added to the experience in terms of grocery, but there is an opportunity with these types of placements to attract non-endemic advertising dollars, right? There can be instances where certain categories, it might still make sense to advertise them in stores, and maybe particularly local advertisers. I like to say this, I think in-store media can help substitute for the shift in viewing that's happening on TV, and certainly local TV advertising is a big piece of that. Those advertisers still want to advertise to the right audiences. Maybe stores are a way to do that. Tell me your thoughts about how you think about non-endemic or local advertising opportunities.
Yeah, a little bit more sensitive. No surprise there. You've seen it take shape on parts of people's websites, that credit card ad, that travel ad, maybe showing up at the bottom of a search results page or on a null search results page. That makes sense. It's additive. It's not disruptive. It's not taking people out of their reason for being in the store or on the site. In the store experience, I think maybe Costco is a good example. It's not really a monetized strategy, but when you leave the checkout, you see the furnace, the tires, the travel. You can get your blinds custom made right on as you're leaving the store. Super interesting, right? It is an enrichment of the services they can provide. In the case of just showing the ad and not understanding the affinity of that brand in that region and its impact to the general demographic, it's risky. And so we're going to move forward with a strategy like that, but based on data and science and test and learn, so that we bring the right ads, the right experiences to the right geo specific. I think you're right on the services that a localized TV plan would have brought can take shape in some of this advanced digital out of home retail media programs, but only when backed with math and research. And that's what retail media networks need to bring to their investors, their media investors, is that research and then that super granular, flexible solution to buy just the spots that make the most sense. And again, that's what that brand would want too. Getting into the super local side of that is super fun, because then you can have that mom and pop flower shop play in the 5 Safeways that they service. It doesn't just have to be national credit cards. It could be something more local and more special to that shopping community. And I think that'll resonate louder as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Evan, I think that's all the time we have. This has been such a fantastic conversation. Thank you again for this great content. We really appreciate you being here. Thanks also to our audience for tuning in. Next, join us for either one of our 2 analyst-led panels, the New Search Advertising with Evelyn Mitchell or Social Media Targeting Tactics with Max Willens. Join my colleagues, Evelyn or Max, next by clicking on the tab below the video that says Next Session. I also hope to see you again for my closing keynote, Is Seattle, not Silicon Valley, the future of digital advertising at 2:05 p.m. Eastern. Thank you very much.